Welcome to Unmuzzled Chat. On Instagram. Come on now. And we all should be set. Appreciate your patience, listeners. So today I'm super psyched to have none other than a fellow podcaster, Mark, here on Unmuzzled Chat. I got a couple links that he sent over. One, in fact, they're both added into the description section, so be sure to check that out. But even the short 8-minute video he has on YouTube really sums up a lot about what Mark is trying to achieve and what he's all about. And I absolutely love that short episode. Mark here seems very enlightened, and he gave such powerful analogies, and just very excited to have him on today. So with that, I welcome Mark on Unmuzzled Chat podcast. How are you doing this fine day?
I'm doing great. It's been a very free day.
Very free. I like that.
I liked it. Yesterday I wore my favorite shirt. It's this all white shirt, and in bold black print just says "Free Man."
Really?
And, yeah.
Where'd you get that?
A friend of mine gave it to me because he knows that freedom is pretty much the story of my life. Not that I was free, but that I found freedom. Because I think it's interesting in the so many movies, the topic of freedom is so powerful.
Yes,
we love the topic. We love the thought of freedom, but who actually has it?
Ooh,
who actually lives free? I go to a prison. I'll tell you the story. I go to a prison sometimes.
Okay,
and we do our program on about purpose, and the program is really about freedom and purpose. It's about both.
Okay.
And I asked the question last time I was there. I said, who have you ever known in your life that is living the life that they want to be living? And they all said, well, nobody.
Wow.
But what's interesting, James, if I go to a coffee shop and I sit down with a couple strangers and I ask them that question, they'll have the same answer.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Most people, because I've been asking this question for a month now.
Okay.
Who do you know that's living the life they really want to live? And people look around the room and they're like, well, and they try to think of people that they think might be living the life they want to live. But for the most part, people say, well, I don't know anybody. And what I find fascinating, James,
wow,
is why aren't we sitting in circles as human beings saying, let's stop it. We all have this one life to live.
Right.
We're experiencing it together. Mm-hmm. If we're not actually enjoying it and loving the lives we're living, we should probably talk about it.
Yes.
And stop it. And figure out how to live lives that we're actually excited about living.
That's a very powerful concept to grasp, even as an adult, because we could reflect back to all this indoctrination. You know, our education system was created to produce workers and not free thinkers. And my goodness, there's a lot of rewiring to be had within each and every one of ourselves to even be free in our own mind, in a sense. And I think you even kind of grasp that in that short 8-minute video, where after like freeing yourself, in a sense, it's almost like you could go back to teaching you're a former teacher, and you have more fulfillment at that point and be happier doing it.
Yeah.
You'd have peace and meaning with it all.
Yeah, my mindset toward my job is why I couldn't feel fulfilled in it.
Wow.
Frankly, my mindset toward me is why I couldn't be free in my job. Wow. And many people feel like we need the circumstances in our life to change for us to have freedom. When I think for most people, the freedom needs to come right here first.
You are hitting on something very powerful right there. I wonder how we could articulate it and really grasp it. That's where I feel authentic stories, like your walk in this life. I mean, you were living a pretty selfless, fulfilling to an extent by a lot of people's standards, career and job, right?
Mhm.
This is something we didn't even touch on. So, but I could hear your wife in the background kind of pre-staging. So you're a family man. Do you have any kids?
Yeah, 3 kids and
Three
2
kids?
grandkids with 2 more on the way.
Wow, that's really cool.
So you're right. My life did look like it was together.
Right.
But now in the work that I do, when I see people, I sometimes wonder if there's only 2 kinds of people in the world. People that are free and people that are bound. I sometimes wonder that question. When I go to the prison, I take visitors with me sometimes. I took a good friend of mine named Andy one time, and we're hanging out in the prison with these guys, and we're having these conversations. And in a couple of times in our conversations, I looked over to Andy and I saw the tears in his eyes.
Oh, wow.
And when we walked out of that, we walked out of the room we were in into the parking lot to leave the prison yard. And we hit that parking lot and he was crying and he said, I need to go to prison. And the reason he said that is because the people in that room lived with a greater sense of purpose than he does. They
Wow.
live with a greater sense of freedom than he does.
That's wild to consider.
Clearly, these
Yeah.
these inmates can teach us all something. Now, clearly, in this prison, there's about 400 men, I believe, at this particular prison I was at. Only 15 of them had signed up for this program. So most of them, just like I think regular culture, most of them are just drifting away in existence.
Mm.
They're just hanging out. But 15 of those men decided to be in this program where they're talking about the life they're going to live when they leave prison. And these men live with a greater sense of freedom than most people I know.
Wow. What do you suppose that is? What
Well,
breakthrough did they have?
I asked them
Yeah.
because one day I brought 2 of my other friends with me, and we walked in the room, and my friends sat down, and they immediately began to ask my friends questions about life. And my friends immediately began to open up and share about their life in a very real, authentic way. Because when you're talking to people that are clearly imprisoned, they're wearing orange jumpsuits. No one needs to fake anything. There is such a vulnerability and freedom in that room. And I sat there listening to my friends who were talking with no walls up to people with no walls up. There was so much freedom in the room that when they finished, I asked the inmates a question that's probably the dumbest question you could possibly ask in a prison, but I asked it because I had to ask it.
Okay.
I said, can I ask you guys a question? Why are you so free?
Hmm.
I asked this to people who are in a prison, but the freedom these guys live with. There's a guy named Leland. He has these big teardrop tattoos from his previous life.
Oh, wow.
His face is all tatted up. He looked at me and smiled and he said, Mark, I got nothing to lose. He said, I gain every day.
Wow.
Another man said, there was a time in my life when, because of what happened in my life, everything was taken from me.
Hmm.
And he said, when everything was taken from me, I found freedom.
I could
But a,
see I could
but a
see
third
how that
man,
could happen.
but listen to this story. This guy's
Okay.
name is Dalton.
Dalton.
Dalton is about 6'2". He's more of a gentleman than I am. He
Hmm.
looks like a Navy SEAL. I think he's in his young 30s. and he's just as polite as can be. He is such a gentleman. If you put him in um, a nice suit, and I said he was a lawyer, you would think he's a lawyer because the way he talks and presents himself, he's a
Wow.
gentleman's gentleman. But when I asked that question, why are you so free? He stood up and let me tell you more of his story real quick before I tell you what he said.
Okay.
He was 18 years old and he wasn't drunk, but he was drinking and driving. He caused an accident
Oh
and
man.
one of his friends was killed. I think they put him away for about 20 years. He wasn't actually drunk, but he was
Wow.
underage drinking, and that was the major charge. And if you meet this guy, you want your wife to you want your daughter to marry this guy.
Wow.
Is what the kind of man he is. But here's what he said when I asked that question: why are you so free? He stood up and he said this: when they took away my physical freedom, I realized that freedom wasn't a physical thing at all.
Mm.
And these guys, when I go to see them, I'll see them again in 2 days. I feel like I walk in this room and I get an IV of freedom poked into my veins.
I like that.
But I'll say this, finishing a story that I mentioned earlier, when I asked the guys a couple of weeks ago, who do you know that's living the life they want to live? And they said, well, nobody. And then I asked the question, how does a human being live the life they really want to be living?
Right.
And a guy named Tulo stood up. He's my age, 53.
Hmm.
He stood up and he spoke like a prophet. He spoke with the sincerity and seriousness of a man on his deathbed. And he looked around the room into the eyes of the people. He looked in my eyes and he said, you will never live the life you were made for until you face yourself.
That's it. That's it right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah. And I can see with supposed actual freedoms being encaged, like you have now no other choice. Then I mean
Yep.
you can let it break you and you could
Yep.
get wrapped into the politics of even the prison, or you could start facing the man or woman in the mirror and doing the self work.
Yep.
And I'm not here casting stones. I could not cast stones. My heart actually goes out to that individual, and it just makes me want to count my blessings that much more because I was young and dumb. I'm 7 years sober now, but there were definitely times I was risking exactly what took place for him.
Yep.
So I am not without sin. I just was lucky in a sense that it didn't lead to those circumstances. But needless to say, when I got the slap in the face that on my own accord put me in AA groups, it's
Mm.
interesting. There were individuals in there, and what it boils down to is the breakthroughs they've had due to facing the reflection in the mirror.
Yep.
And so many of them, it's kind of a known saying within the AA community, grateful alcoholic. But some of them would just say it to say it. But more often than not, they say it because they meant it. And they're walking with a sense of freedom because they faced like character defects, fault defective wiring. They ultimately found a path that was full of meaning and peace
Yep.
in their life. And it shifted everything. It became less materialistic and more selfless.
Yep.
I mean, it's pretty crazy, but
James,
it
I think most people have muzzled their own freedom
boom.
because they have the capability of buying fancy drywall to put around their prison bars. And
Wow.
the people outside of their life
Yeah.
can look at them and think, wow, look what a beautiful structure they live inside of.
Yeah.
No, it's a prison.
Wow.
It's a prison. I do not fear human beings having problems. I think everyone does. I fear us having the capability to hide them,
Wow.
because that's where the destruction is. We do
Yes.
not lose our freedom because we have problems. We lose our freedom in the moments that we hide them, that we hide those problems, because then we're living more for reputation, and we live for reputation at the expense of our freedom.
Wow.
And I can speak this so boldly because it's what I was as a man. I remember when I was a young man, I pastored a small church in Indiana.
Okay.
And I remember a guy on the back row who everyone knew was an alcoholic. I didn't know this man well. He didn't come a lot, and I didn't even know what alcoholism was like. I've never been drunk my whole life.
Wow.
It's not because I'm some saint. Because trust me, if I like substances, I indulge.
Yeah, right.
I just, you know, it being sat in the back row, and I was like, alcoholism is bad. It harms people. Like, but I never knew what to say to that man.
Mm.
But at the same time, he was on the back row struggling with alcohol. I was a guy behind a pulpit struggling with food. And I didn't see it then, but I see it now. I was that man, and he was me. But our
Wow.
culture looks at someone who overindulges with drinking different than someone who overindulges with oatmeal cream pies. But the reality of what was happening inside of him, what was happening inside of me, was probably very, very similar.
Wow.
When you walk
Yeah.
in that prison that I go into on Thursday, I'm going to see 15 guys in that room wearing orange. I don't know what those guys did. They did all sorts of things, but the reality of their life is very, very similar. And as I walk around, hang out with people, see people in the community, see people in church, I see the same realities happening among human beings. The
What
storyline is the same.
what started you going into that atmosphere? I mean, is it a form of ministry that
What started me going into the prison?
yeah.
Someone invited me to go talk to the inmates. I went. There was a program. This program that they're doing is to help uh, men get ready for what they're going to do when they get out of prison.
Mm.
And I was invited to go, and I drew this picture. I drew this picture that describes the story of our whole life. I get this giant whiteboard in the prison in this room, and I draw this picture of a pathway in a wilderness. And I talk about how everyone in life, it's like we start on this pathway, and then things go wrong, and we end up in the woods.
Mm.
And in the woods, we begin to hide. We think very differently. We act very differently. The goal changes. It's not that different than the story of Adam and Eve in scripture, where it describes these two people. They were described as naked and unashamed. You talk about alive and free. And then when
Right.
things fell apart, they become these two people that are living with nothing but fear and shame. I'm
Right.
not sure about you, so I'm going to come back here behind these bushes. Matter of fact, I'm not even sure about me. So I'm going to put on these fig leaves to cover myself from myself.
Wow.
So Adam and Eve went from being someone who was they were free with God, free with each other, free with themselves, and now they're broken in all phases.
Wow.
And so I drew this picture. We talked for like over an hour, and we talked about how people end up in this bush in the wilderness, and that bush becomes a prison, and they don't know how to get free to get back to the path.
Mm.
And right before I could talk about how to get back to the path and find your freedom, the alarm went off and they went on lockdown, and they had to immediately leave the room.
Oh, man.
And so when they were leaving, I said, I'll come back next week. I promise I'll come back next week.
Wow.
And so I went back that week, and I went back about 7 more weeks and did our whole Purpose Mastermind program. And then I'm coming back this year and doing it again.
Wow. What shocking experience to start going into that environment with kind of an intent of helping, right? And lo and behold, I mean, the percentage of the experience, but nonetheless, in certain situations, in a way, you are the one being helped.
Well,
You
I tell
know?
you, when I walk in there, from the first time I went in there until now, I'm just one of them and they're one of me.
Hmm.
It's impossible to walk into a room and be a better human than someone else. It's impossible. I related to them so well even before I went, because I was a guy who used to live in a metaphorical prison. And when I found freedom as a man, I realized that everyone can have it, no
Okay.
matter your circumstance. Because
Teach us your secrets, Mark. We want to know your secrets.
well, right here, One Step to Freedom is a book I wrote. I didn't want to be an
Oh,
author. I
oh,
don't call myself an author. It was never the goal, but
no.
I had to tell my story,
Okay.
because if you look on the back of this, there's a picture of a man in a prison cell who has a big problem. And the major epiphany of my life was when you're in that prison cell, you get a big problem. And the problem is you think you have to fix yourself to get freedom. So every day you stare at that problem. For me, I'll tell how it relates to me. For me, my big problem was my big body.
Mm.
Ever since I was like third grade, and I found out I weighed like 10 pounds more than the normal humans.
Oh, wow.
Like food and weight was my constant like issue.
Hmm.
I mean, if listen, and even as late as 7 years ago, James, if you and I met in person and shook hands, I would not remember your name, because I'd be too busy wondering what you think about how I look.
Wow.
Everywhere I went, I was thinking about how I look. Every day, the biggest decision of my life was, is my shirt loose enough?
Wow.
Because if my shirt is loose, I'm okay, right? If my shirt is loose, I'm okay. So just keep buying the next shirt up the rack. I think I got to 4X at one point. And
Wow.
I'm not a skinny man now. But James, I'm a free man every day. And many people are holding their freedom hostage because they
Okay.
think they have to fix their life first. And all that does is fortify the prison cell.
Wow. You've gained a very profound lens that
Mm.
really, I mean, you freed yourself. So I wonder at what moment in time, like really, like led to this journey for yourself. Do you want to dive back into time a bit as to when that was when you were teaching and what led to this great perspective and breakthroughs essentially
You
that led
know,
to yeah.
there's four stories running through my head right now, and I'm just trying to land the plane in my head.
Okay.
You
Take your
know,
time.
for many years, I taught Bible to students, and I loved it. I loved kids. But I always remember teaching, like, if the fruit of the Spirit ever came up in a conversation, and we list them off, the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness. I'd always have to stop before I got to self-control, because I felt so disingenuous.
Wow.
How can I talk about the fruit of the Spirit being self-control, and all these students are looking at my body? And it was this thing. I tell you, I look back at my life, and it's not that I was a bad person. I wasn't a heretic. I wasn't two-faced. I was what people thought I was. I was the person. People just didn't know that when they came to learn from me, they were coming to visit me at visiting hours in my prison. because it's as if I was living my life looking through prison bars.
Hmm.
And I have some things to say, and I really do care about you. I really want to teach you, but I couldn't tell people, oh, by the way, I hope you're free because I'm not.
Hmm.
I was, my last 2 years of teaching, I was just getting, I felt like the walls of my life were closing in around me. The ceiling was lowering. And I felt like as a man, I was just living for comfort and security,
Hmm.
maybe a reputation. And that was it. And there was something inside of me that wanted to really live. There was something inside of me that wanted to live for something more than the next cookie,
Wow.
the next snack.
That is so. All right. It's, and this, I know you've grasped it in such a way, like this is your journey, but this, and it applies to everyone in their own personal sense.
Yeah.
So I ask the listeners to try to seek what is their cookie. And for some, it may literally be that cookie. Some, it may
Yeah.
be that alcohol. Some,
For
it
some, it's
may,
shopping,
yeah, some, it
their
could
job.
be lustful. For me, I know, young, dumb, it was a whole mixture. It was lusting over women. It was sinful nature. It was materialistic in this life. Um, yeah, it's kind of what Hollywood has ingrained, and I call it defective wiring, and it has imprisoned us. So many aspects to the world we live in now, really, and you now see it with social medias. My goodness, the way filters and things like that have now even impacted the image with women
Mm-hmm.
and men also. Like, it's vanity's become a big issue within individuals. But anyway, I just challenge listeners
Mm-hmm.
to personally apply. I didn't mean to interrupt
What's
you.
your cookie?
Continue. What's
What's
your
your
cookie?
cookie?
Yeah, that's your next book title, I think.
What's your cookie?
Wow.
So I felt myself, there was something inside of me. It was like there was a 1 inch tall lion at the bottom of my heart sleeping under a blanket. And every now and then he'd wag its tail, wondering if it would ever have a reason to roar.
Hmm.
So in this time of wrestling, it was about 2 years, a person gave me a book to read, and I read the first line. The first line of the book simply said, "Stop living as if the goal of life is to arrive at death safely." I read it
Wow.
again. Stop living as if the goal of life is to arrive at death safely.
So, in a huge sense, you were living a life of just comfort,
Yes.
no challenge. Like, that's where I admire Charlie Kirk and so many individuals that are out there putting themselves in very challenging
Yep.
situations. I mean, you even going into prisons and in that sense can be a challenging situation and a humbling one. And for us, yeah, to take action like that very well could lead to, everyone's path is unique to that would lead them to breakthrough, but it all starts with really the deep dive within themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I listen, we all enjoy some comfort. I will never live a life without challenge.
Wow.
I never. It's so boring. It makes me be when I don't have challenge that I'm pursuing, it turns me into everything I don't want to be as a man. I'm telling you, I would tell any person that is struggling with any kind of addiction, whether it's something like alcohol or drugs, or whether it's something like shopping or cookies.
Okay.
If the only thing a person hears and they turn off this episode, if this is all they hear, I'm going to tell you this. Don't stop your addiction. Start your purpose. Don't
Wow.
try to stop the thing that you don't want to do. Start the thing you were made to do.
Wow.
There's no power in trying to fix yourself. There is power in chasing who you were made to be. There's power in that. there's no power in trying to wake up to lose weight. Boy, I proved that over and over again, because for years and years and years and years, the constant thought in my head, I need to lose weight, I gotta lose weight, tomorrow I'll lose weight. It just, all it did is make me gain weight. And
Wow.
that is what puts us in the prison is not our problem. It's how we think about that problem.
So
And
with that kind of mindset, that kind of action could lead into being a forever solution to those problems in a huge sense.
hmm,
Um, without, yeah, it just repeating and
yeah.
and bigger breakthrough than just that problem.
Oh,
Kind of like, yeah, just like once again that grateful alcoholic. There, the alcohol became the catalyst that helped set them on that path that led to that breakthrough, to where it's like, wow, alcohol wasn't in fact the problem. They found a life of purpose and meaning, and they now have gratitude. Yes, it was very challenging, the alcohol, and it became life threatening for some and very reckless and all sorts of even legal issues. But then again, they foster gratitude for those challenges due to where the path that it took them on, right?
yep. I have grandkids now, and so it's made me more bold. If you're a grandpa, you can say whatever you want and say, well, sorry, I know that was a little bold, but I'm a grandpa. You understand? My grandkids, I am not going to raise them and compel them to stay away from drugs. I'm going to raise them and compel them to have something to live for that's greater than drugs.
Wow.
I'm not going to I'm not going to tell them I have a grandson Jace. Jace, alcohol's bad. It feels good to be intoxicated. It traps you.
Oh my
I'm going
gosh.
to raise Jace to look at life outside of himself, to see something bigger that he can be a part of that is intoxicating to him. Purpose is intoxicating. Freedom
Wow.
is intoxicating. We
Yes.
have, we have got to stop telling broken people,
Mhm.
addicted people, we've got to stop telling them to stop their addiction. We must pick them up and walk them to their purpose. Because frankly, if a person doesn't have something to live for, what's the point of living against anything?
Wow.
I
That's
recall I recall
powerful.
talking to myself at a Sam's Club one time. I was actually talking to an apple pie. I
Okay.
I had just been at the gym. I was on the treadmill and the TV was on a random show called My 600-Pound Life. And it was about people who weighed 500, 600 pounds. And I watched that show and I totally understood those people. I didn't throw stones at them. Like I said, I'm not skinny now. Even if I was, like, I understand that life. And then I went to Sam's Club and I went to get a rotisserie chicken and they weren't quite done. So I'm waiting in front of the rotisserie chicken stand. And right in front of that is the bakery stuff. And they have like these 10-pound apple pies for $9. Cheapest drug in the world. And I looked at that apple pie and I thought to myself, if a person had nothing to live for, it makes complete sense to go to Sam's Club every day and buy one of these pies and go home and eat it. Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
And
Wow.
like, how do you even, how does a human being even have a power to withstand apple pie, alcohol, drugs, shopping, if there's nothing greater to live for?
Wow.
And I just think people, so with my grandkids, I'm not going to tell them of the dangers of substances. I'm going to tell them of the dangers of living life without purpose.
That is
And
deep, but you, with so much that you already covered, was enough. If if someone just really sat, pondered, journaled, and then
Mhm.
started the self work, that is the beginning of a whole new path of breakthrough.
Can I tell you a story?
Yes,
Because
sir.
you've mentioned a number of times how we get rewired.
Yes.
We forget who we are. You had a guest on that's a mutual friend of ours, Ryan Wimpy.
Hmm.
One day I was at his house because we're good friends of theirs, and I was at their house and I was eating lunch with his kids. At the time, they were 5 and 3. And my wife and I, one of the things we do is we help people clarify their purpose. We have a purpose mastermind program that we have conversations once a week for 8 weeks. And we talk about the goal is to know your purpose. But I'm always looking to have these conversations wherever I can. And so I'm like, you know what? I've never had the purpose conversation with people this young, but why not? And so I'm sitting there eating lunch with the 5-year-old and the 3-year-old. And I picked up the paper plate and I said, "What's this plate for?" And the 5-year-old little Richard said, "It's for holding your food." And I picked up the napkin. "What's this for?" And little Reagan, she said, "It's for wiping your face." I picked up the fork. "What's this for?" Little Richard said, "That's for stabbing your food." I looked at Richard, the 5-year-old. I said, "What are you for?"
Ooh.
This is the question I would love to ask every human being. Matter of fact, this office I'm in, there are people that come visit with me here in the office that are struggling with life, and they tell me their problems, which is fine. It's good to say your problems. But when they do, I look at them and I ask them a question. Who were you made to be? Because that's
Mm.
all that matters. So I asked little Richard, after the plate, the fork, and the napkin, "What are you for?" Here's what he said: "I'm for God."
Wow.
I said, "What does God want you to do?" He said, "Love people." What if a human being lived their whole life with that simple, powerful sense of purpose? What
Well, the
could their
world
life become?
world would surely be a better place, but more than that, I do believe that is the key to this life, in fulfilling one's purpose in a huge sense. Now, I do believe God gives us unique gifts in that sense. So, uh, living out of love could look very different for
Mhm.
all types of people, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But the simplicity, we lose the simplicity. And in place of that, we take on all this complexity that leads to nothing but constipation and frustration. We end up wandering around like zombies, wondering, what am I supposed to do with my life? Why am I here? Well, what if we're just like the 5-year-old? Today is another day to use my life to honor God and love people. And whether you're a car mechanic, you collect trash, you're an actor, you're an influencer, you're a singer, whatever the occupation, whatever the location, what if we just get about that business? What if we do those things?
Mm.
What if we pursue that life? I'm telling you, so much of this clarification in my head about all of this, it came when I found freedom. You asked about my story, and I stopped it with that sentence I read in the book: "Stop living as if the goal of life is to arrive at death safely." I was on the treadmill at the time, once again, and next to me was my wife, and I handed her the book and I said, "Read the first sentence." And I said, "I'm leaving the school."
Wow.
And the next day I called the administrator and I said, "This is my last year at the school."
A single line hit you that profoundly.
After
Wow.
2 years of wrestling, after 2 years of wrestling, the tiny lion in me finally won. The fat cat finally lost. No
Wow.
more cookies.
Wow. Well, you look great, but even more than that, the your energy, the perspectives, that I'm feeling on this side. I'm very grateful for this episode already. And I'm actually really bummed that it's it's glitching out occasionally because this is too good to be glitching.
We're all glitchy.
Yeah.
I left that job to go nowhere. The only place, I don't think I knew where I wanted to go. I knew I had to really live. I knew I could not keep living small. I knew I couldn't just keep
Mm.
existing to feed myself. I could not keep existing to keep feeding my body every day. I needed something to do with my body every day. And this took me to the most pivotal point in my life where I finally had to do something I would never do. And it's in the book, One Step to Freedom. I think the most difficult thing a human being could ever do is the thing the guy in the prison said you have to do: face yourself. You could
Absolutely.
ask my wife. My wife and I could talk about anything, but the topic of food is off the table.
Mm.
About 15 years ago, she tried to bring it up one time. And I don't remember my response, but she said, the way you responded, I knew I could never talk about that topic.
Oh, wow.
This was the area the I could talk about a lot of things with a lot of people, but this one thing in my life I could never talk about with anybody. And that's what kept me in a prison. And I finally faced myself. I'll never forget the day
Wow.
I called a man. I didn't know the man. I saw him on a Zoom conference with several people, and he was telling part of his story, how he used to weigh over 300 pounds. He went down to 195. And listen, I never trusted the little trainers at the gym that have never weighed more than 200. Because I'm like,
Right.
how can you understand me? You know how to be in good shape. You don't know what it's like to be over 300. And then, so I called that guy named Alan, and I was finally honest about me. And it wasn't just, Alan, I eat too much, help me. It was, Alan, I'm going to die a young man. I am an overweight, underachieving man, and that is all I am. And I
Mm.
was made for more. I said, at my funeral, I can see this room with a lot of people, because a lot of people know me, but they don't really know me. And above their heads are going to be these thought bubbles. And everyone in that room is going to be thinking, Mark was a good guy. If he could have ever stopped eating, maybe he could have done something. I said, Alan, worst of all, my 3 kids on the front row, I'm going to die without my life ever showing them what freedom looks like.
Mm.
And every human being is in need of freedom. And the thought that my life would not demonstrate what freedom could be to my own kids.
Wow.
These are words I could never say. And I've never met Alan in person, but I love him dearly. Because James, he said something so powerful when I opened my heart. James, he didn't ask me how much I exercise. He didn't ask me what food bothers you the most. He didn't ask me what triggers you to go to the refrigerator. James, here's what he asked me. What's it holding you back from?
Wow.
It's as if this book, One Step to Freedom,
Mm-hmm.
it's as if it was clouded over and the pages were empty. And it was clouded over with dust. You couldn't even see the title. It's as if I told him my junk and he went,
Wow.
what message were you made to give the world? What was your life made to be? He didn't point me to my problem. He
Wow.
pointed me to my calling.
It's wisdom.
Yes. And this is
Mhm.
why I am so geeked out every day because
Wow.
I see people everywhere who are so struggling with whatever substance or behavior or mindset, and they're trying to stop the bad instead of starting the good.
Wow.
They're trying to eliminate their garbage instead of creating their calling. Instead of walking into their future, they're trying to dig through their past and fix it. And you can't fix your past. You don't need to fix your past. There's a calling that's waiting for everybody. There's a future for everybody. There's a freedom for everybody. And I'm so thankful for for Alan, who, when I opened my heart to him and showed him my junk, he didn't dive into the pile of junk to
With
discuss
you.
it with me.
Yeah.
He dusted off the book of my purpose instead.
Holy moly.
And this is what
And
people
from
need.
no kidding. It seems like for you, and it wasn't easy, no doubt, because you had to face that man in the mirror. You had to face those insecurities. You had to
Yeah.
face all that wiring, that box you put yourself in. Also, I believe society, sometimes even our family, certain experiences we had, even as a child, right, that could have led to these anchors being drug,
Mm.
but you severed those anchors and you faced your future, your purpose. And I commend you because you've obviously been vulnerable now for some time. You speak with great ease as to things you couldn't have talked about even with your wife in the past. And
Yeah.
that is what a that just to me shows leadership. It shows um you are now showing up in such a loving way on behalf of others for like kind of screw my vulnerabilities and
Yeah.
insecurities. I
Yeah.
will kick pride and ego in the face every day. And that seems to be what you're doing with your book, with your podcast, in a huge sense. Two different major issues or two completely different paths as far as you and I, but in a huge sense with what we're now doing, like our purposes in a sense. And I believe a lot of people in this world purposes would align just like ours.
Yeah.
But does that mean they're podcasting? No. There's
Right.
I mean maybe for some, but it's gosh dang. There's great blessing, and there has been for me, just reassuring this journey I've been on, and just trying to help others,
Yeah. Yeah. There every human being, our world needs an uprising of common people
Yeah.
taking uncommon steps with other common people.
Yeah.
The heroes are not going to save us. The famous people are not going to save us. Politicians aren't going to save us.
Mm.
Common people everywhere need to rise up and decide, you know what? This is my life. You
Yes.
are my friends. This is our planet. We have
Yeah.
our calling, and we should do something serious together to make a difference in this world.
I love that. That's what we've been trying to achieve. And that's where I hope the listeners can truly grasp that through the work you're doing, through the work we're trying to do here, in a sense, like lifting each other up, creating that community, that alternate economy, so to speak, we could create that momentum that shifts because evil is so present. Evil has, in fact, been what is behind a lot of this poisoning of our minds, bodies, and soul. And that's what I felt really led us into captivity, even among, I mean, being in such a blessed country, but yet you can see how, in the literal sense, we've been losing our freedoms in a huge way And that's why I'm so grateful for platforms such as Rumble, where we're given the ability to speak freely, be unmuzzled, and we must maintain that at a bare minimum if we're going to have a shot at everything you even just described there.
Mm. Mm. Freedom's for everybody. The world, you would not believe, this is true for all of us. If we'll just face ourselves, we'll begin to step into freedom and purpose. And the people around you will start to do the same. So most of my life, I would never talk about food, weight. I avoided the scale. When I connected with Alan, he said, why don't you weigh yourself every day? He gave me some challenges. I ended up getting a group of friends on Facebook, in a closed group, about 10 of them, I believe. And I said, I'm going to tell you how much I weigh every day.
Mm.
And more importantly, I'm going to tell you why I weigh what I weigh. Because I stopped telling myself I need to lose weight. I stopped doing that. I started focusing on purpose, but at the same time, I was facing myself. I wasn't trying to fix myself. I was facing myself. Big difference.
Wow. Yeah.
I was pursuing my purpose while facing myself instead of trying to fix myself before I live my purpose. You can't do that. We should all face ourselves consistently, but our focus should be on our purpose outside of ourselves. And so every day I made a video on this group, and I said, here's how much I weigh, and here's why I weigh what I weigh. And the stories of my life started to unfold. And I was like, oh, the revelation that came from asking the question, why do I weigh what I weigh? So much of that is in the book. So much of it's in here. Like just asking that question was like light bulbs just constantly, like, oh my goodness, now I see my life. Before I was so imprisoned, I couldn't see it.
Wow.
You know, people shouldn't tell themselves to stop drinking. They should ask themselves why they do drink. People who can't stop shopping, instead of saying, I got to stop shopping, ask yourself, why are you shopping? Why are you shopping? And ask yourself that for a week, 2 weeks, a month, and just let the answers, just open your heart and let the answers just pour in or pour out, whichever way it goes. But I tell you, when I asked that question, the freedom that came,
Yeah.
and then the ripple effect of other people, that group on Facebook ended up being like 70 some people.
Wow.
And other people in that group started to find the same kind of freedom for things in their life.
Wow.
I'll never forget the time. My sister is 2 years older than me. She called me one time because she's watching my Facebook, and I'm telling all these personal stories about myself. And so she called me one day, and she told me a very personal story about herself that I never knew. She told me a couple of stories that were very painful. My sister Sharon, most of her life, she stuttered severely. When you're a kid, you just get used to your sibling talking this way. It is what it is, but she stuttered very severely. And if you knew Sharon, you would think that's her problem. Just like if you knew me over the years, you would think food is my problem. No, food wasn't the problem. Just like alcoholics, alcohol is not really the problem.
Right.
So on and so forth. She called me, and the stories she told me about her life, something happened to her that no one knew, that happened at the same time that she began to stutter severely. Something very painful happened to her by a neighbor.
Oh, wow.
And then something else happened a couple years later. And everyone thought, think about this. Everyone thought she had a stuttering problem. No one knew what really happened in her life. But she told that story, and I didn't know what to say. I just listened. The hardest thing I think in the world for someone to do is tell their secret. Oftentimes we do it with a counselor, and that's a good thing. But counselors aren't allowed to do anything with the information that you give them. There's something about telling a human being that if they wanted, they could use your information against you. Having the guts to tell someone else without them being legally bound to keep it a secret, there can be a freedom that comes. Yeah. It's probably a couple months later. She sent a message. I still have it on my phone. It's a video message that she sent to my wife and I. And she said, I never talk about this, but it's time for me to stop stuttering. Wow. I got goosebumps right now thinking about that.
Yeah, I got goosebumps. You brought a whole other level to being unmuzzled. Unmuzzled to this point has more so been fighting against censorship, the worst type of censorship, self-censorship. You just went on a deeper level of being unmuzzled to where it leads to true freedom.
Listen, most people cannot help other people find freedom in their life because they don't have it for themselves. Wow. When people have freedom for themselves, they will automatically and organically help other people find freedom.
Mark, I love this because I know it is clear to me in my mind and in my being. Like, I just know it to be true. If enough of us in any country or worldwide, let's just keep it to the United States of America. We know there's a lot of corruption going on here. But if we freed ourselves on an individual basis and we were able to be accountable and hold ourselves responsible and really dive in to that level, I know naturally we would become the own solutions to our own problems on the bigger stage, hands down. And not just that, we would even secure, because it would lead us on a path more often than not, I believe, to securing our place in the eternities, which is far more important than here and now. And we're all visiting here. Like, there's nothing more important to engage in.
Yep. You froze, but I'll just keep on what you're saying.
This connection's driving me nuts. I think it just again.
It's time for all of us. It's time for all of us regular people to realize none of us are regular.
Right.
We need to stop looking at people on stages and start shining our own bright light in a dark world. When my sister sent that message and she said, it's time for me to stop stuttering, I knew exactly what to say to her.
Yeah.
I called her because the lesson that I learned is what she needed to know. I realized that I didn't need to lose weight. I needed to go start doing my purpose. I called her and I said, Sharon, you do not need to stop stuttering. Go do your purpose. And she had on her heart to do some things. She wanted to go to visit the women's shelters and offer to help other women who are struggling with life. And she just stepped into it. Probably, I don't know if it was a month or 6 weeks later, I was on Facebook. I was on my phone taking a walk, and I got an alert that she was doing a Facebook Live, which she never does.
Wow.
In the way she talked, it wasn't a subtle stutter. It was an overwhelming stutter. You don't do a Facebook Live unless you're videoing someone else. It's still on Facebook today. I believe it's 2 minutes and 35 seconds where she's in front of her camera in her home. And she says, I don't care what is happening with COVID today. We must all be the hands and feet of God wherever we go. And she
Mm,
gives this encouraging thought to people. And you would have to listen closely to hear her stutter one time.
no kidding. No kidding.
This is the message to everyone.
Yeah.
Stop. You can stop trying to have the discipline to stop your wrong behavior. Instead, have the courage to put on your cape and go chase your purpose that's bigger than you and outside of you. Stop wrestling with that stupid donut on the inside of you that keeps telling you you're not smart enough, you're too fat, you don't talk good enough, you have this problem, you have this habit, you have this addiction. Stop listening to that little thing on the inside of you and instead listen to the lion on the inside of you that's compelling you to go do something with your life that's bigger than you, and it's for the benefit of other people. And you
Wow.
might just find that you felt those shackles that were around your ankles in that prison cell. When you go to live your purpose, you might find that those shackles were never attached. They were just dangling around your legs and arms. And if you'll just walk towards your purpose, you might find that you just walk out from your problems.
Might. I guess it all depends on the level of you being honest with yourself and how sincere you are in seeking. That might, I think, would
Well,
be a more resounding, more than likely.
and here's the reason I say the word might. Can I be honest with you? You don't need your problems to be gone to go live your bold, best life in this world. Listen, I'm not skinny
Wow.
today, but I live like a skinny man. And many people, I think we actually need to keep our problems on the journey because our problems teach us. That's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole
Wow.
other thing. That's a whole nother conversation. But many people, here's the lesson of weight loss that I think really helps people with problems they have. The reason most people can never lose weight, number one, they never have something greater to live for. You can't live with the goal of losing weight. You got to live with something that's 10 times bigger than you.
Mm.
That gives you a reason to run. You can't wake up to avoid the fridge. You have to wake up to run to something greater. So that's the first reason people can't lose weight is they don't have anything greater to live for. And trying
Wow.
to lose weight is not a great goal. That's a tiny goal. The second
Tiny.
reason people can't lose weight is we don't let it be a journey. So I wish I had a picture I could draw this, but people, here's someone in a prison and they decide, okay, I'm going to lose weight. And they take one step out of the prison, they lose 2 pounds. And then as soon as they gain a pound, they walk back in that prison. Oh, I failed. Then
Wow.
a month later, all right, here I go. And they step out of that prison, maybe for 2 days, and they lose 3 pounds, maybe 4. Then they gain a pound or 2, like, oh, I'm still back in the prison. The journey is supposed to be a messy journey. You leave the prison, you lose 3 pounds, and then you gain 1. Then you lose a pound and you gain 2. Then you lose 3 or 4 pounds over the course of a week, and then you gain 1. And then the journey is supposed to be a messy up and down journey. But most people don't let their journey be a messy up and down journey. It's supposed to be this perfect thing, or I'm back in my prison.
Wow.
And it was when I looked at, because I started weighing myself every day, I would track it. I think it was over the course of 100 days. I had actually had more days that I gained weight than actually days I lost weight. But after 100 days, I think I was down like 30 pounds or something. But see, most people, every time we fail in any way, we put ourselves back in the prison. We don't let life have any ups, and we only want life to have ups that can't have downs. If I have a down day, I'm back in the prison. No, this is human. We're human.
We're human, exactly. And those down days and those additional hurdles, when you gain that other perspective, when you have that life of like me, when you have the bigger things, when because you said it's little, I like that. It's
Yeah.
tiny
Yeah.
compared to a life purpose.
Mm.
Then these hurdles and these challenges become those moments in time actually become
Mm.
more so because you face them head on, the more valued kind of gems on the shelf than even the perfect vacation, you
Yeah.
know, it because that with the right perspective we're strengthening ourselves and our resolve and our resilience and our purpose. We're
Yeah.
re-solidifying. We're building that foundation that much stronger. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. I got a whole bunch of notes here, Mark. Now you mentioned your book. Where is that available? I imagine there's a lot of listeners, a lot of individuals that could benefit. I
Yeah.
myself
All the
could
regular
benefit.
places. One Step to Freedom.
One step
Subtitle
to
is
freedom.
Leaving the Habit You Hate to Live the Life You Love.
Well, we'll be sure to uh when this is wrapped up, add a link to that in the description also.
I'd also
But
say this: if anyone's watching this, I told the story of the 5-year-old that knows his purpose. If you're a human being and you just don't know your purpose in a sentence, like just you can start right there. Like you can know your purpose, and it's really important because
mm,
without if you don't know your purpose, it's so easy to spend your whole life focusing on your problems and your past. It's hard to live with a sense of purpose when you don't know what it is. So that's the other thing that we love to do with people is walk people through a program we call the Purpose Mastermind, and it's just so you can know your purpose. It's kind of a big
wow.
deal.
Yeah. Wow. So it sounds like you're doing more things than just a podcast and writing books. You're engaged in your community and I don't know. Do you are maybe you'll even be willing to leave some of your socials on here if individuals want to reach out to you directly.
Hmm. Yeah, I can leave my email and
Okay.
anything. I'm not out there a lot. I'm on YouTube a little bit, Facebook a little bit. Uh, um, the main thing I point people to is One Step to Freedom, or if you need our personal help, reaching out by email.
Now you have over or around 200 episodes on your podcast. Just kind of
Hmm.
a snapshot because you only sent me the one episode, but that was like 160 something. It was up there. So,
Yeah,
what generally are you covering? Are you having
it's
guests?
anything on how to live your life on purpose.
Okay.
We do a lot of stuff on parenting. We do stuff on marriage. We do stuff on overcoming addictions. We do some practical things on what does it look like to walk with God, because there's a lot of people that want to walk with God but don't really know what it looks like and how do you do
Mm,
that. So we
right.
look at we have some podcasts on what is practical spirituality. Like, is spirituality just this weird stuff out there that you kind of like feel for, or is it actually practical? We talk about spirituality as it applies to parenting, as it applies to marriage. And so it's just really
Wow.
practical on how to live your life on purpose instead of just your life being this science experiment run by people you don't trust.
Right. My goodness. Well, you went over some powerful things. I mean, I'll leave it up to you as to I mean, we're just over an hour. We could continue a bit longer if you have any other burning desires, or we could leave it open ended. And I would love to have you back at some point, Mark, and we could even do deeper dives. I just, I find you a well of just great information and a great example to really actually obtaining freedom it's even hard for me to articulate in this moment. I absorbed a lot. My mind's pretty full.
We've talked a lot about freedom. In the book, I have drawings as well because I'm real big picture. I think pictures are
Visual.
important because it's
Yes.
hard to. There's some things that are hard to grasp, but it's easier to picture.
Right.
So yeah, we talked a lot about freedom. Maybe we should connect again and talk a lot about the topic of purpose
Purpose. Yeah.
and how people can clarify that. And it's such a big deal. I tell you, when you can look in the mirror and know your purpose, it's a conversation many people are afraid of because we feel like it's too late for us or I'll never know it. Everyone can know their purpose. And
Right.
when you can start taking steps towards it. So that could be a great follow-up episode.
I agree. That would be fantastic. I know I'd love to have you. I'm sure some of our listeners would welcome you back with open arms. I'm grateful for you facing that man in the mirror to share with us here today. I undoubtedly you're blessing a lot of people, and in doing so, you're being blessed. It's just that rising tide that's rising all ships. And we can really achieve that more so effectively all together. Everyone has unique gifts to bring to the table. So if we could just unify and not be fearful of stones being cast.
Yeah.
Like I suppose that's what it even boils down to for a lot of individuals unwilling to really face. They feel in the moment it's easier to put on that facade. Everything's okay. But in reality, yeah, maybe in the moment that seems easier, but in the long term, it is not. We must face ourselves. And it's interesting. I find ourselves to be, very flawed, but resilient in a lot of ways. But it's humbling to realize that so much of our childhood traumas and things of that nature we carry through all our adulthood, and we would carry through our lives if left unaddressed. So it's I guess you just gave a whole other amazing, beautiful road to take that even helps overcome all of that. Because once you do land in your purpose, I guess in a huge way, I'm just having a realization. Because that, for me, I've expressed on this platform, all became blessings and gifts from God as I saw a relationship with Him, relationship over any religion, that He just blessed all that healing. But what happened simultaneously that I never really put my finger on the pulse of till this very moment live on this episode is that in a huge way in that moment I fell into my purpose. So those things washed away. And that is such a gift. That is truly freedom. And now I value my spiritual life and death over my mortal life and death. And that is freedom. And I just hope, for whatever reason, this triggers something within individuals. And if you found Mark to really speak to you, order up his book and check out his podcast. Reach out to him. Let's go ahead. I'm going to end on this. It's just a 1-minute prayers. And today it is cooperation. And this is, you can't make this stuff up. I did kind of preview this one. The bookmark is where it is. And I believe it goes pretty profoundly with our episode. It's titled Hurdling Sin. You are still worldly. For since there is jealousy and quarreling among you, are you not worldly? You are not acting like mere men. This is 1 Corinthians 3:4. And this little prayer reads, sin sure can get in the way of a cooperative spirit. Lord, sometimes instead of praying about my sins and repenting, I hurdle them and try to keep going forward. Show me how futile this is, Lord. Jealousy and a quick temper hinder my abilities and also the ways in which you can work through my life. I, I become the hurdle to your will being accomplished. As a man, I will sin. As a child of God, I will seek and find forgiveness so I can stay true to the path of eternity that is placed before me. Amen. That's I that kind of parallels a lot of things we just covered. It's quite beautiful. If you don't mind, Mark, I'm going to go ahead and plug some of our affiliations, and we'll just end with that. But folks, stay tuned. We need your support. We need more shares, likes, comments, interactions, anything that's going to build the proper momentum to touch more lives, above all. But there are some calls to action that will ensure that a better direction for our country. And Patriot Mobile, I find to be a blessing that they would affiliate with our humble little platform. So instead of funding our enemies, let's fund the only Christian conservative mobile network there is. Information isn't going to hurt you. Look at their website, see what they're involved in, see what your money would be going towards. But there is personal benefit to be had by looking into their service. So give them a call, find out what that looks like for you. Simply mention Unmuzzled, and they will waive fees and take care of you. Let's plug American Reserves, because I've been ecstatic even trying that food. It's been so good that I recommend you don't try it, because you'll eat it and it won't end up survival food sitting on your shelf. But they are offering all of us an additional 10% off. You can click the link below, just mention Unmuzzled. And the other affiliations, be sure to check them out. We have other preparedness with EMP Shield. Very important. Don't be left stranded. At minimum, I recommend one per vehicle per family. And it protects against all three wavelengths of EMP, lightning, and solar flares. Other than that, we are so grateful to you listeners, and hope you are as full as I feel right now. I feel very overfilled, Mark. I appreciate you. So thank you for taking the time to be here on Unmuzzled Chat today, and I look forward to chatting again soon.
Thanks for having me.
All right, listeners, God bless. God bless America. Till next time, take care.